And we're back. This will be quick. um, not really a rant today. I'm not reading my story. I'll come back to that a little later. Got some writing to do. Um, a, a cautionary warning, a note of caution. Right. Once again, today somebody was reporting about the average temperature of the Earth and how it was 1.68 degrees C above a pre-industrial baseline or some such. Quite a bit more than it was the last time we heard a number. I think the last time it was like 1.52 or some such. And yes, it's headed towards 2.0. It will probably get there sometime towards the middle of summer, maybe late summer. It doesn't matter. These numbers seriously don't matter. These are averages. These are global averages. And the problem with averages of anything is that, number one, just by taking an average of something, you completely disregard the extremes. Okay. My go-to analogy for that is you're taking a person's average body temperature and you're going to do the really smart thing. You're going to take it right in the middle of their body, right here, 6 inches above their navel. You're going to put a thermometer on their navel and you're going to take the temperature. But this person has a predicament. They have a predicament. And their predicament is that their feet are in the oven's on, their head is in the freezer, and you're taking the average temperature right in the middle. And you would think, okay, well, they're about 1.68 degrees C above a normal human temperature. That's a little on the warm side, but they should be fine. Meanwhile, over here and over here, they're not fine at all. So by taking an average and and talking about, I'll take it here, no, I'll take it over here, the actual, how long is a human, divide that number in half and find the exact spot and measure from the foot and measure from the head and mark the spot with a Sharpie and a permanent marker and be sure you measure the temperature with the thermometer held vertically, and you have all this in max. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Makes no sense at all. Yeah, it's all detailed and scientific and measurements and thermometers and the angle of the thermometer and what type of thermometer and where'd you buy it? Did you get it from Walmart? Did you get it from a scientific supply house? Did you calibrate your thermometer against a well-known thermometer? Did you maybe buy 4 or 5 thermometers and have 4 or 5 measurements and average those, right? Did you use a laser thermometer? Did you use an infrared thermometer? Did you use a thermometer from NASA? Okay, all this scientific nomenclature, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's completely deranged. It's unhinged. Because you're overlooking the fact that this person whose measurement you're taking in this very scientific way in details and discussions, their feet are in the oven and their head is in the freezer, and you shouldn't be doing this. You should get their head out of the freezer and their feet out of the oven, fix them, take them to the hospital, get them cured, whatever, right? And then when they're out of the hospital and they're able to just stand there and talk to you, you can take their temperature because their head isn't in the freezer anymore and their feet aren't in the oven anymore, right? To do it another way is insane. It's unhinged. I'm not even saying it doesn't make sense. It's worse than not making sense. It's deranged. It's deranged. There are ways to do things for certain things. And if you try to take that thing, taking the average temperature, and translate it over to another set of problems, the fact that you can do that and talk about doing that, it doesn't mean it's going to make any sense. And taking the average temperature of the Earth is unhinged. It's deranged. It completely overlooks the terrible things that are happening at the extremes. It's deranged. I want to make perfectly clear, however, that it's useful. Propagandists say and do a lot of things that if you looked at them clinically as a clinical psychologist would appear deranged. A propagandist, you get this from 1984, the book by George Orwell, right? 1984. People learn the coping mechanisms for propaganda. They learn double speak. They learn double think. The propagandist is moving them all the time. The propagandist tells them that white is black and up is down and all these opposites And because you have to survive in their propagandistic environment, that you're being constantly bombarded, and you just have to get through your day. And so as a coping mechanism, you learn to double think, you learn to triple think, you learn to think that they want you to think that you're thinking, but don't think that, because actually they want you to think the opposite of what they want you to think. And if you think you understand what they want you to think, then you're not thinking correctly. That's double think, triple think, quadruple think. People call it playing four-dimensional chess. No, it's deranged, okay? It's a complete failure to communicate correctly. It's a complete overtaking of communication as a activity for the purposes of propaganda. Donald Trump does this a lot. He's doing it right now with his abortion thing. He'll come out on TV and I'm not saying this to cap on Donald Trump. I'm just simply saying that I was noticing he was doing that, and no one else right now is kind of doing that, except some of the climate scientists. Well, I'll get to in a moment. But Donald Trump, people say, well, he says what people want to hear, and it depends on who he's talking to. But he also does this in the media. So he'll get up in front of a group of people or just a group of reporters, and he'll say, yeah, I'm all for a federal ban on abortion. And then and then 10 minutes later, he'll say, oh, I'm all in favor of states having states' rights and can determine what their stand is going to be on abortion. And then he'll come out later and he'll say, that person said, that states' rights is how it should be done. No, it should be done at the federal level. And someone proposes to me when I'm president again, 47, and they propose to me that a federal ban on abortions, I'll sign it. And then he'll go over and say, states' rights are very important. And you say, man, the guy, what, he's Alzheimer's? He's forgetting what he's saying? No, he's a propagandist. He's engaging in, wife just came in. He's engaging in narrative warfare. Now, taking the average of the global temperature and compressing it into one number and trotting that out like some sort of a trick pony, it's not as bad a propaganda as what's happening right now with our political system, but it's pretty bad. It really is. It's saying that the extremes don't matter. It's maybe even saying we don't have extremes. It's hiding the fact that there's extremes, and it doesn't matter. For example, somewhere in that average number that's being carefully calculated from this and that and the other thing, and throw out some data that doesn't look good and include some other data that probably should be there, and take the average, and then you report that. You completely overlook the fact that even though we are 1.6 degrees C above a pre-industrial baseline, you completely overlook the fact that Europe is 4 degrees C above a pre-industrial baseline. Is that a problem? They're 4, not 1.68. And Alaska is 8 degrees C above a pre-industrial baseline. And the North Pole is 10 degrees C above a pre-industrial baseline. Oh, and that's where all the ice is. So are these problems or not? Because you're just overlooking them. You're just throwing them out. The extremes, we don't worry about the extremes. We don't worry that it's too hot over here, it's too cold over there, it's too something else. We just want the average. Because why? Why is that good? Why is that cool? Why do we need that number? What does it tell? It doesn't tell us anything. Yeah, it's a number, and they have this rationale for how they calculate it, and they held their thermometer in a certain way, and and the satellite record, and the ship's records, and the airline records, and the buoy records, and all this stuff, and added it all up, and did a division, and threw out some data, and determined the error bars, and then they don't even report the error bars; they just give you a number. Yeah, you can do it. You can do it, but so what? It's meaningless. In the context of Earth dynamics, system dynamics, what is the temperature of the Earth? We don't care what the temperature of the Earth is. We care what the temperature is in regions of the Earth. We care how fast parts of the Earth are warming. We care if there's a trend in that warming. We want to know if there are parts of the Earth that are warming significantly faster than other parts. Because if that's the case, we may want to go to those people and tell them that. You may not be aware of this, or maybe you are, but just in case you weren't, your region is warming much faster than the rest of the Earth. So you have a bigger problem than maybe some other people do who are not experiencing what you're experiencing. But we know what you're experiencing because we noticed, and you're warming faster than everybody else. So you have a bigger problem. Do they do that? No, of course they don't do that. No one's doing that. UN isn't doing that. The scientists aren't doing that. The governments aren't doing that. They're just reporting the global average. And they can't save you from what's happening if they just report the global average. They can't tell you that you're in more trouble than these other people over here. And they can't tell the people over here, even though you don't really think you're in trouble. There's other people, humans, families, okay, over here that are in big trouble. I know you don't think there's anything happening. You're looking for some global heating, and I don't see any global heating. Well, that's because your region got lucky. You rolled the dice. You won the global lottery, and now you're going to be semi okay for now. But these other group of people are really suffering. And if you went outside and checked the temperature around your house, you might not notice that these other people over here, 1,000 miles or 10,000 miles away, are actually really suffering. Do you care about that? Well, of course, most people wouldn't care. They're saying, "Oh, I'm fine. Can we send an aid package? Can we send condoms or something to those people? What? Baby formula? Will they be okay if we send them baby formula and condoms? Yeah, bath towels? What do they need? Oh! Now you're going to tell me I have to stop burning fossil fuels so those people can be okay? Yeah, well, I'm not doing that. Yeah, fuck you. I'm not. No, I'm not giving up my fossil fuels. I'm fine. I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. And those other people, they're suffering. Yeah, fuck them. Figure it out. Send them baby formula. Send them bath towels, sneakers. I don't even care. Send them something. Send them our surplus, whatever, and they can cope. Now that's the answer you'll get from people. No joke. No joke at all. That's the answer you'll get from people. And if all you're going to talk about is the global average temperature, then that's the answer you're going to get from everybody, because people don't notice on a year-to-year basis that they're getting hotter unless their crops are completely failing. And then they might say, why did the crops completely fail 3 years in a running? And they say, well, we got a drought. We've got a heat waves. The heat comes in at the wrong time and it cooks the plants, and the plants die, and we can't get a harvest. The heat. You're saying the heat. I've heard about this thing called global heating. Could there be a correlation there? And so they may be worried about this, and you're not, and you may not be worried about it because you don't grow crops where you live or who you are. Your food all comes from the Whole Foods or the Trader Joe's or the Safeway or the Albertsons or whatever. That's where your food comes from. So provided that your food comes in and if you've got privilege and you've got money and you got all these things going for you, and your government is powerful, has a huge military, and you have all this influence in the world, and then maybe you're getting more food than other people are getting. Maybe you're even taking food from other countries that don't have enough because you've got the money, and you go in there and you say, hey, that's a nice boatload of bananas you've got there. What do you want from those? Oh, we're keeping those because we got to feed our people. No, you don't need to do that. You need to take my money. I'm going to buy that boatload of bananas. Name your price. Great. Here's the money. And then they leave with the bananas. Meanwhile, what are these people going to eat? Well, they got lots of money. Well, what are they going to do? Buy food on the open market? Where are they going to go? What are they going to buy? They just sold all their bananas, or they sold all their soybeans, or they sold all their wheat, or they sold all their cattle. Now what are they going to eat? Because somebody wanted the money. Somebody who could control these transactions wanted the money. Meanwhile, their crops are failing, and their cattle are dying of dehydration and starvation. And, they just sold the last of what they had to make some money. Somebody did, probably some government official, some bureaucrat, sold the last of what anybody had, took the money, and then, of course, left the country, right? Well, I got money. Now I'll go live in Florida. And they leave. They take the money and they leave. And then the people are left there to die and starve to death, and they have no food. And they have no money now because somebody who had the money left. All of this is hidden from us. All of it. I'm talking about it in the abstract. What if the crops, what if the heat wave, but that's really happening. People don't care. They got theirs. You should care. You should care. So, example, Exhibit A. The UK left the European Union. And they left the European Union. It's been a big disaster for them. They left the European Union because the European Union was pressuring the UK to take their share, however that was calculated, of refugees coming to Europe, to the EU. That they're part of the EU and they should take their share of the refugees coming to the EU. But the UK is an island nation, and refugees weren't coming to the UK. They weren't getting on the Euro rail and coming into the UK. They weren't floating their little inflatable rafts to the the cliffs of Dover and getting off and coming into the UK. The UK wasn't seeing any of that. So they're like, we don't have to take our share. We don't want them. And that's your problem. They're landing in Greece, they're landing in Italy, they're landing on the south of France. That's not our problem. That's Italy's problem, Greece's problems, France's problem. We don't really care. Why do we have to take them? They're your problem. You keep them. And the EU was saying, no, you're part of the EU. You have to help us with this problem. They're like, nah, fuck you. So they Brexited and they voted on it, and they didn't want those people. And so now they're not part of the EU, and they don't have to have those people. It's true. It's true. It's unlikely that people from Africa are going to be sailing around Spain and through the Straits of Gibraltar and up the channel and onto the shores like as if they were Phoenician merchants. They're not going to do that. They're going to get off the boat as soon as they can. If they got a little inflatable rubber raft, the first time they see shore, they're going to get off. They're not going to sail all the way around Spain and Portugal to come to the EU. I mean to the UK. They're not going to do that, and the UK knows that. So they exited the European Union. Said, yeah, go pound sand, forget it. Well, now the UK is not part of the EU, and it's a big problem for them. And there's even noise that they should get back in the EU. Well, they're talking about getting back in the EU because the refugee crisis has abated. It wasn't a forever thing. It was just a temporary thing. Why was it a temporary thing? Because there was a sustained, prolonged drought in Syria and parts of North Africa. And the farmers who were living in the hinterlands in Syria were starving because of the drought caused by, wait for it, climate change. It wasn't just one drought. It was many, many years of it. And so they bailed out. They left the countryside, went into the city to find food. And the Syrian government, which is a bunch of asshats, they said, you can't come into our cities. Wait, you don't vote the right way. You're not literate. You're not washed. Look at you people. You're filthy. You're not even the right ethnicity. So no, you can't live in our urban areas. Here's a boat. Go to the EU. They'll let you in. They take everybody. So they sent their unwanted bodies, essentially, out of their own urban areas onto boats and sent them to the EU. And that's why that happened. And then everybody got on board when the Syrians started showing up in the EU and they were accepted and they were brought into the Paris suburbs and they were given homes and jobs and the whole thing. Well, then everybody wanted in on that. So they start getting in boats and, some of them for reasons of starvation and political strife, but some of them just for economic reasons. They just want to go someplace where they can make money and send money home to their families. And so they got on boats and they went to the EU because, hey, the EU will take you in. And UK wanted no part of that. And at least part of that whole shit show started in Syria because of a drought caused by global heating. So yeah, global heating can have impacts. And in this case, it kicked the UK out of the EU. And oh, by the way, it gave us Donald Trump. Okay, that's twice I've mentioned Donald Trump. But yeah, that guy is a phenomenon, all right? So yeah, we got Donald Trump on protectionism and migrants and borders and all this stuff, echoing exactly what the UK was saying at the time. Surprise, surprise. And fear of brown-skinned people and black people coming into our country and polluting our blood and soil and all this other Nazi stuff, okay? It doesn't do us any good to talk about the average temperature when somewhere there are people who are experiencing the end of their way of life because of something that's way, way beyond the average. So how do we talk about this? I'm mentioning this now because we're going to be having at least a national discussion. Probably every nation is going to have this discussion. What does it even mean that the global temperature is 1.68 degrees C above baseline? The temperature every day changes by more than that. Nighttime is cool and daytime is warm, and some days are warmer than others, and some nights are warmer than others, and winter is different than summer, and it changes all the time. And what is the point? See, it's a propagandist's wet dream that they have a number they can point to and say, you see that number? They want you to think that number means something. You know instinctively. You got common sense. You got horse sense. of a horse. And you know that number doesn't mean nothing when every day it does this and every season it does that, and winter to spring and to summer. And you know, this little number, this average number, whatever that means, whoever calculated that, however they did it, who even knows, are scientists, they make shit up all the time. And it's just a little number. And that's going to be the narrative warfare we have to deal with. It's just a number. You don't have to believe it. And it's a tiny number. You can't even see that number on your household thermometer. Go out in your household thermometer, see how big a change that is. It doesn't even matter. That's what they're going to say because we're giving them the number. We shouldn't be giving them the number. What should we be giving them? What should we be giving them? We should be giving them nothing. The global average temperature is insane. It is completely unhinged. It is a meaningless factoid. It has no validity in this system. It's completely wrong. It is wrong. And I don't care if you've got a PhD in mathematics, a PhD in climate science, a PhD in earth dynamics. Nobody does. I don't care what your credentials are, how many papers you've published, how many presidents you've talked to. It's completely insane. This number is meaningless. Well, but people don't want a lot of numbers. They want to see one number. That's just because people are stupid. People are chimps. Okay. We have to provide leadership. We can't be running around trying to dumb everything down to the level of chimps. Well, you could do that, I suppose. You could dumb everything down to the level of chimps, give them a number, give Donald Trump a number, give Joe Biden a number, let them debate about the number, let people get elected president based on a number, let people get, storm the Capitol based on another number. You could do that. You could give the chimps what they want. You could do that. Why would you do that? If you're a scientist and you could do that, and someone says, "Hey, can you just simplify all your science, your entire career? Can you simplify a billion data points from satellites and ships and airplanes and ground stations and floats and all? Can you just simplify it for me? Because I'm a fucking chimp, okay? Just simplify your whole fucking career, your entire field, the works of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of scientists, decades, centuries of work. Just simplify it for me, okay? Just do me a fucking favor, fucking egghead. Just give me a fucking number. Can you give me one fucking number? You're so smart. You got all these numbers. You're talking about all this stuff making me feel stupid. Can you just give me a one number? Well, I could give you the average temperature of the earth. Yes, that's what I want. I want the average temperature of the goddamn earth. Just give it to me. Jump. And maybe I'll fund you. You want some funding? Okay, I'll give you some funding. Here's some money to go calculate the average temperature of the earth. Give it to me on Monday. Can you do that for me? Thank you. That's what a chimp will tell you. Scientists are sitting on something that is explosive. They know it. I know it. This is explosive. This is going to blow up. This is going to blow up in a big way. Now, if you want to tell the chimps, here's a number for you, go play. Then Donald Trump will get elected, or Joe Biden will get elected, or someone will get elected, and there'll be economics and there'll be stock markets and all this stuff about the number. And what have you accomplished? Yes, you'll still get your grants because you didn't scare the horses. Yes, you gave the chimps what they wanted because, hey, they're politicians. They're the ones that sign the checks. Okay, give the fucking chimps what they want. Yeah, you'll get what you want. You'll get money to go calculate the number, to give it to the fucking politicians and economists so they can do whatever they do. God only knows what magic, what actual alchemy they're engaged in. And you can get on about your scientific life. Yeah, you could do that. I guess that's why you give the chimps a number. And then they can play with it. And they can kill each other over it. And they can debate it. And they can say that it doesn't matter. And they can say that it does matter. And I'm here to tell you it doesn't matter. And I'm here to tell you not only does it not matter, it's really dangerous. It's a dangerous thing to be doing. Oh, well, okay, let's be honest. What is the danger here, though? What is the danger? What's the danger? What happens if we take this one number and really just exercise that son of a bitch? And we're going to take that number, we're going to publish that, and the New York Times will have a big 6-inch letters, 1.68 degrees C. And people say, well, that's a number. Is that a decimal? What is that in Fahrenheit? I mean, people get distracted. They'll argue about why are you giving us degrees in centigrade when that's communism? You should give us freedom units like Fahrenheit. Okay, you can have this big fucking argument, sell a lot of newspapers, lots of comments, lots of social media. You can do all this shit and sell and get rich and distract the chimps and distract the politicians, storm the Capitol. You can do all that shit over a number. You could do all that. That's what you could do. But you can't save anybody with a number like that. And maybe you don't care to save people. That's a possibility. That's a distinct possibility. And, really, I mean, let's just play devil's advocate here. If we're going to play devil's anything, let's advocate for the devil, shall we? Why would you want to distract people with a stupid number that means nothing? Why would you might want to do that? Maybe you're a little devious. Maybe you're a little more than just a chimp. And you're thinking, yeah, we could give people science. We could do that. But why would we not do that? Why would we deliberately give them something that's just crazy, unhinged from reality? Well, because you don't want them to know, right? No, now you're talking conspiracies. Shouldn't you be wearing your tinfoil hat? No, I'm just saying propagandists engage in narrative warfare. That's what they do. That's the first class. That's propaganda 101, graduate level propaganda. You're going to become a propagandist. You're learning propaganda 101. I'm sure there's a class called propaganda 101, by the way. Edward Bernays invented the whole theoretical basis of corporate propaganda and, political propaganda. So let's just assume they still teach it in colleges, propaganda 101, persuasion 101, whatever you want to call it. So people study this and people know how to do this. And this is a tool in the toolbox, politicians and economists and theologians, propaganda. So why would you want to roll out your propaganda tool set in the face of what we're dealing with right now? I could to give them the truth, or I could do this other thing I've been trained to do, which is to artfully lie. I mean, engage in helpful dialogue, and we'll give them something that's meaningless, but which they can talk about endlessly in absolute excessive detail, obsessively compulsively to talk about this one thing. And the thing will be based on science, and it'll vary. It'll go up and down over the course of the seasons and the years, and they can really get in on it. And it's related to science. It's all truthy, and no one minds taking the average of things, right? We have a bias even to take the average. What's the average height of everybody in the room, and how many black people do you hire relative to white people, and what's your average skin color or something like that. And we talk about averages and normalcy bias all the time. So let's give them a number and teach them to focus on that number. Okay, even though the number is meaningless, they're not going to question it because it comes from this scientific process that is like a black box. So the black box churns and grinds and bumps and grinds and poops out a number, and they'll take the poop and they'll look at it. That's interesting. There's a number, and then they'll go play with that for a while. And the number, fortunately, means nothing. It really means nothing. You think it means something? You're still thinking it means something after this? Oh well, then whatever. You're lost. Come back for the next video. Okay, I'll be talking about something else. The number is meaningless, but to a propagandist, it has value. Now, that's not the same thing as saying that it has meaning. Something can be meaningless and still have value. And the value to a propagandist is that the thing that has no meaning is a distraction. You can confuse people with things that have no meaning. You can confuse people. And if that's your goal, and you could even have that as a goal. You could be a government official, you could be a corporation, you could be an NGO, and maybe your goal today is to confuse people. Why would you do that? Because you don't want them to know the truth. And why would you do that? Because you don't know what they're going to do if they have the truth, or you do know what they're going to do if they have the truth, and you don't want that to happen. And so whoever you are, maybe you realistically think you are in control of the situation, and you don't want to frighten people, and you don't want people to know, and you don't want them to change what they're doing because you're going to manage it for them like daddy. All right. And so you give them this number they can play with, and then they play with the number and they discuss the number and they flame war each other in social media over the number, and they storm the Capitol because of the number, and now they're all entertained. And meanwhile, the adults are going to, do the necessary thing. But so far, what we're seeing is that what the governments and the corporations think is the necessary thing is business as usual. And why wouldn't they think that? Of course, they're going to think that. So, That's what they want. They want business as usual. They don't want people doing anything differently, thinking different thoughts, planning their lives around climate change, global heating. They don't want people moving. They don't want people lifting up, up sticks and going to another country. They don't want people storming the Capitol. They don't want people, creating, suicide cults. They don't want any of that stuff happening. They just want people to get up every morning and wash their face and get in the car and go to work and get the kids off to school and get the kids back from school and do the dry cleaning and get home and cook the meal and eat the meal and pray to Jesus and just keep doing the thing. Just keep doing the thing. And our entire response to global heating is to give you a number. The average. And if your region gets really super hot, we'll trot out the average and say, well, that can't be right. You must be wrong because the average global heating is only 1.68 degrees C above baseline. And you're going to like eyes glaze over. Oh, yeah, really? Okay. Well, if that's what you say, I guess you must be right. It just seems really fucking hot these days. I don't understand. The crops are failing and the animals are withering and we can't get any milk out of the cows. And it just seems like there's something wrong. No, you must be wrong. Your perceptions are off because the global average temperature hasn't really risen that much. It's only risen like 1 degree, maybe 1.5, and you're just mistaken, Elmer Fudd. I don't know what to tell you. See how useful that is? I mean, it's unhinged. It's meaningless. The guy is experiencing calamity wherever he is, whether he's in the Syrian hinterlands or the middle of America or Canadian forest. He's experiencing some calamity, and it's really easy for the government to say, yeah, well, climate change is a thing, but it's not that big of a thing. Whatever's happening to you must be something else. It's land management, or maybe you've mismanaged something. Maybe you're not doing it right. Maybe it's you. You ever think of that? Maybe you're doing it wrong. So we should have a study, and we should study what you're doing, and maybe you could do it differently. Maybe have a grant to help you do things differently. And meanwhile, he's dying. He's dying. He's done it. He's at the end of the road. And if you wait long enough and study it, and reassure that climate change isn't really affecting you because it's only 1.68 degrees above baseline. So that's not much. That doesn't even register on the thermometer you got in your house. And meanwhile, he just keeps doing what he's doing because he was told to keep doing what he's doing because he's not told he's having a problem. And then he dies. And that's how you get rid of 8 billion people. Because that's what you have to do. If you're not going to address global heating, then what you're basically saying is 8 billion people need to die. And where does that leave you? If 8 billion people need to die, they end up with maybe 80 million people, something like that. And hey, you know what happens when you have 80 million people? They can do business as usual just fine. 8,000 million people, not so much. 80 million people, we're in the zone. So they have to get rid of 99% of the people. And if you know that, I just explained it, right? If you know that, and if I know it, they know it, right? I'm not the only one who knows this. Well, then you just make sure people are reassured. It's not a problem. It's only 1.68 degrees C above baseline. If you want that in freedom units, it's like 3 degrees Fahrenheit, and 3 degrees Fahrenheit. That's nothing, right? Seriously. That's what we're talking. That's what we're debating. Is 3 degrees Fahrenheit above some pre-industrial baseline, like 1850 or something. 3 degrees. That's increased by 3 degrees. Global average, really? 3 degrees. And we're supposed to flip our wig over that and tear up our lives and stop going to Disneyland and stop driving and flying and moving goods and all that shit. We're supposed to just basically pull in our horns and pull in our civilization, tear it all down and start over without fossil fuels. That's what we have to do? Over 3 degrees. Really? You're asking me this question? How am I going to live without fossil fuels over 3 fucking degrees of fucking Fahrenheit? Average for the fucking whatever? Really? You're bringing that to me as a project? I'm supposed to do this now? Give up my car, give up my flying, give up my Disneyland, give up my Starbucks for 3 fucking degrees fucking Fahrenheit? That's it. That's what you're proposing. No, I'm not doing that. So the number is incorrect. It is scientifically invalid. Yes, you can calculate it. Why would you? It's wrong. Well, but it's useful. Oh, yes, that's true. It is. It is useful. I will concede the point. It is useful. All right. You do you. You're a government official. You're an economist. You're a scientist who doesn't want to rock the boat. Do you? And normalcy bias people want a number. They don't want 40 years of climate science. They want a number. Boil it down so I can take it in easily. 1.68 degrees C above baseline. Okay, thank you very much, sir. That's interesting. Thank you. No, I'm not going to change my life over that. Thank you very much. Go fuck yourself. Okay. So it's useful. Yes, absolutely. It's useful. It's absolutely, maybe it's critical. Maybe it's critical that you keep doing this. It could be absolutely the most important number they ever develop to keep people doing business as usual, to not have people panic, people not storming the Capitol because of global heating. Okay. Carry on. You've been warned.